Hello, I see you there. I see you on a Friday, ready to hang out and talk about Stargate. My name is Darren Sumner. I run things around here at GateWorld, and I like to hang out and talk about Stargate on Fridays with you guys in the chat, but not just by myself. Let's bring in today's guest is Andrew Reeve. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Darren.
I'm not going to get all your bona fides right, but you are a longtime Stargate fan. You live in British Columbia, and we're going to talk in a little bit about the article that you wrote for the Vancouver Sun about Stargate's production history in Vancouver. So I want to kind of focus today on Vancouver and Stargate's history there as we're looking forward to a new show entering production this year. But you're also a CBC commentator. You worked in the BC Parliament in legislature. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, wrapped up about 8 years in the BC legislature. Right now I'm doing political commentary, some communications consulting, but I'm here because I'm a longtime Stargate fan.
That's great. When we had the announcement come out in November, we knew everybody was going to be excited, right? A lot of Stargate fans have been waiting for a new show to be announced. It was a long drought. And when we did those first live streams after the announcement and kind of asked people, hey, are there any other fans out there who want to help with GateWorld and then with David over on Dial the Gate? And you might have been the first person who emailed me, maybe the second. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, a couple months now.
Yeah, it was incredibly exciting news, and I saw your notification pop up on my YouTube subscriptions. You guys were going live with big news, and wow, what a surprise that was.
Yeah, what did you think of the news when you first saw it?
Oh, I was ecstatic. Amazon seems to be going up, gobbling up all of my favorite franchises. I'm also a big James Bond guy. With their acquisition of MGM as well. So I'm really excited about what they're going to do with it. Might not have been thrilled about what they did with Lord of the Rings, but we can forgive the Rings of Power.
Okay.
And look forward to really great things going forward with James Bond and with Stargate.
I was, like a lot of people, before the news came out, I was pretty trepidatious about what a giant big box retailer and streaming platform might do with the Stargate franchise now that they own it. But the fact that it's Martin Garrow and with help from Joseph Mallozzi and Brad Wright, it's the old team that brought us the shows that we love. I don't know about you, but that took a load off my shoulders. Not quite so worried.
That's exactly what I needed to hear. Yeah, that it was going to be in safe hands and you had names that you recognized. There's been a lot of IP acquisition over the last 10 years, and it's not always put in the hands of people that have a lot of respect and reverence for the source material. So hearing that Martin's involved and Joseph's involved and Brad, that added to my enthusiasm, and I put the pessimistic side of my mind off for a bit and was able to really get excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. There's still a lot of it out there. I read comments on social media and on YouTube and on GateWorld every day, and there's a lot of trepidation. There's some folks who, just because it's Amazon that's doing it, don't have high confidence. But I'm certainly hopefully optimistic. I think for reasons that we can get into today, there's a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys in the chat, let us know if you can see us and hear us okay. We're going to be interacting with you a little bit. If you have questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the chat. You can @gateworld.net in the chat to make sure that I see it. But how are we coming through so far?
I see we've got IBREC in chat. I follow him on YouTube, does amazing work building this model of Atlantis with down to the incredible detail of looking through cast and crew photos to see exactly what line is drawn on which little panel and everything. It's incredibly intricate. So shout out to the work that you guys are doing there.
Yeah, Ibrek is Bryce Orrs. He does fantastic work. Good to see you, Bryce. Good to see you, Raj. Good to see you, Anthony. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so I watch Dial the Gate a lot. I don't know about you, but I watch Dial the Gate and the interviews that David and his team do over there. and they do really deep dive looks into production history with the people who made the show, cast and crew. I love the series. I love the oral history project that he has going on. And when I decided I wanted to do some Stargate live streams over here at GateWorld on a regular basis, I decided I wanted to keep it casual, at least for now, just a hangout. But I also want to talk to fans. I want to talk to other people, not famous people necessarily who made the show, but other fans like me who love the show, who watched the show back in the day, and it's kind of part of my sci-fi DNA. So I want to hear first a little bit about your fandom. When did you fall in love with Stargate? How old were you? What did it mean to you when you were younger?
Yeah, I was a kid. I would think it was around like season 7. I'm not sure if it had aired yet or if it was around that time. That was when I saw it on the Space Channel, which was channel 46 back on basic cable here in Canada. And they had the rights. It was the Canadian version of the Sci-Fi Channel, essentially.
Right.
And I had seen a few episodes here and there, and I wish I could remember the one that made me go, oh, I really, like, I got to take a look at this show. But I remember the one after that, after I had decided that this was something I was interested in. The first episode that I saw where I'm like, oh, wait, that's Stargate, that show that I have now decided that I like. Let's watch whatever's on. And that was season 6's Descent, where the mothership is above Earth, and you've got Thor's brain there, and it's an early Jonas episode. That was the first one that I have this like nostalgic fondness for, because that was the first one after I had decided that this is a show that I'm a fan of. Let's watch this. And in retrospect, it's maybe not this stellar episode, but for me, it's one that I like. When I think Stargate, that's the one that has just stuck with me over all this time, because that's the one where I was excited. I was, wow, it's on. Stargate's on. Let's watch this. So that's got a special place in my heart.
Descent is a great episode. It's one of my favorites in season 6, and this was kind of a new era for Stargate and fandom, right? Because the show in the States had just leaped over from Showtime to basic cable, so there was more opportunity for a new audience and a wider audience to watch it. And we had Jonas. We had a brand new character who was finding his way through the team. Yeah, I love Descent. I love Major Davis. I love the Hatak sinking into the ocean. I love the Thor stuff. It's a great episode.
Yeah, and the effects work with the water and everything is absolutely incredible too.
Quick question for you before we move on. Is that a rocket behind you? You want to show off your goodies?
Yeah, that's when I had COVID, I bought one of the Lego Saturn V's as a little project to do while I was sick. And so that's the 1,969 piece Saturn V Lego.
Oh, it's the Lego set. That's cool. And then I'm just realizing now I cropped them out of your shot. You also have some Stargate goodies.
Yeah, they're not usually here, but just for you, Darren, I put them out on my table there. I've got the Master Replicas X303 and the 304 Daedalus.
Let's see.
There you go.
There they are down there.
Yeah. And I've got my one piece of swag on that I got at a convention a long time ago for the 10th anniversary of SG1.
I don't think I've seen that vest before. That was at a convention? Was it sold by...
It was GateCon in Vancouver, and I can't remember if it was something being sold or if it was maybe one of the prizes for the trivia contest or something.
Interesting. Yeah, usually when I see that anniversary merch like that, I feel like a lot of it was cast and crew gifts. They made some stuff for crew gifts, so there's not very many of them out there. But then I know MGM also had an online store at that point, so they sold some of it on the online store, and probably, yeah, with partners like GateCon, I could imagine some of them getting out. So it's a pretty rare item, though, I think. I don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, I don't usually dress like a finance bro with the vest and everything, but I put it on just for you and the fans today.
Excellent. You're looking sharp. A question from Mr. Sammy for Andrew. With the new Stargate show that's being worked on, comparing the VFX of the older shows, such as SG-1, Atlantis, etc., what level of quality of VFX do you hope for? Where do you
I
think we're
mean,
at on the
Amazon's
VFX front?
Yeah, Amazon's been pretty clear that they've been spending a lot of money on their projects. What they did with The Expanse was incredible. I mean, after they picked that up after it was originally canceled and then Bezos bought it, I loved what they did with that. And I'm a sucker for the show. I've read all the books. I'm a big fan of the entire series, but I felt that they really did it justice. And the effects were quite spectacular on The Expanse. And even earlier on, I was maybe not being so kind to the Rings of Power, but what you can't say is that it didn't look good. There may be issues about plots and stuff about orc families and all the stuff that
Sure.
happened there, but but at the end of the day, it looked pretty damn good. It was very impressive, the VFX work, the cinematography. So if Amazon's putting that same level of money and talent and dedication behind this, then I think we should all be pretty excited.
Yeah, it certainly looks expensive. And
Yeah.
whatever else you say about it, I again, I kind of keep going back to what Martin Garrow and that team has told us so far, which is they kind of came out of the gate with, we got Amazon money. And they had, for the original shows with funding from MGM and from Sci-Fi Channel and maybe a little bit of money from overseas partners like Sky. It was the 90s, right? In the early aughts, and they had a budget and they had to maximize the budget. They had to maximize their sets and keep costs down, and your visual effects shot can't run for too long. And if we have a bigger visual effects budget for the big mid-season two-parter, then we got to do a couple of bottle episodes to save some money. Stargate was one of the last shows, I think, that also did recap episodes. Right, the Remember When episodes that are just to save time and money. But if you've got the budget of an Amazon and you're making a streaming show, I don't know that the sky's the limit. I think Martin probably has a boss who's at some point able to tell him, let's not make this spend. But everything we've heard so far is they're gonna go big with it. They've got money to spend. They're going to shoot internationally, as we'll talk about in a minute. They're going to have a VFX budget. They're going to be able to maybe cast some bigger actors. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of amazing, actually, after 20 plus years of Stargate, to have a show with a budget.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I genuinely loved almost all of the clip episodes that Stargate did. Disclosure is a top favorite for me. And then what was the one with President Hayes getting briefed in season 7?
Oh, that was Inauguration. Was the
right
season
before
7
Lost
clip
City.
show.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and politics in season 1. Disclosure certainly in season 6 is a favorite of mine. Again, I love Major Davis. He's wall to wall doing a lot of the disclosing to international partners. And this was at a time when Stargate was, right, for a lot of years, it was the Stargate program was based in the U.S. It was run by the U.S. military. And it was shifting to kind of open the doors a little bit and bring in more international partners. And from there, the story will give us the IOA, right, the International Oversight Advisory, which is eventually going to run Atlantis as an international expedition. It kind of feels like that's where we're going with the new show. It's a global show with a global fan base that's going to apparently film globally.
It certainly feels like that would line up with what Amazon wants. And I know there was plenty of talk about the program becoming public as a part of the third movie that never got made.
Right.
So I could easily see them going in that direction as a way to kind of bring in. I mean, Atlantis kind of did that with really focusing on international cast and whatnot and bringing folks in. So I think that was a way that you can get different audiences, and with Amazon money, perhaps there are some celebrities in countries that were maybe not the biggest market share for a North American show, but maybe there's some Bulgarian celebrity who they're looking to increase their viewer share there, and they cast her as an actor, something like that. They've got the money to spend to try to do that, and we know Stargate has a good reputation for having an international fan base.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so back to your fandom. Again, I tell people it's like choosing your favorite child, but do you have a favorite Stargate series?
Oh,
What do you put on when you want a little of that nostalgic warm fuzzy?
that's the thing, right? If we're framing it that way, it has to be SG-1. I would say on paper it should be Atlantis. I think there are more Atlantis episodes that I crave and love and just think are excellent. But when you just want something after a long day, you want to put something on, it's almost always SG-1 that I put on. So, there's the heart and the mind. Perhaps intellectually, I prefer Atlantis, and I prefer that dynamic and that setting and that the arcs that happen there. But yeah, when it's what's your comfort show, it's got to be SG-1.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that. Favorite episode?
Ooh, that's a tough one. For Atlantis, it's probably Critical Mass. That one's
Really? Critical Mass.
It's got a
Okay.
special place in my heart. I
Yeah,
like
let's
Agent Barrett. It was nice to have him in there.
yeah.
And yeah, you've got Cadman back in the episode. There's a lot of things to love. The song that Taylor performs is hauntingly beautiful.
Mm.
There's a lot of really great character moments for McKay, for Paul McGillion as Dr. Beckett. There's just so much to love about that episode. You've got Mitch Pileggi putting in one hell of a performance, and great twist there.
It was a good
no
twist.
no notes. I love that episode.
You like the crossover element? They didn't do a whole lot of direct crossovers between the shows where they're actually shooting on both sets and using characters, but Critical Mass has crossover, doesn't it?
Yeah, that and Pegasus Project, and like a few of the crossovers. I mean, they were doing it before Marvel was doing it, and I would say they did it better.
Yeah, that's great. 100 episodes to pick from. I don't know if I've ever met anybody who picked Critical Mass, but yeah. How about
That's the episode that I probably put on most. If there's an SGA
Yeah.
episode that I've seen the most, is probably Critical Mass. I
it's
love
just
that
got all
episode.
those elements that click.
And it's easy to just slot into, right? Like we can all say The Siege is fantastic, but that's a 3-episode thing. You got to sit down and commit to that.
That's a commitment.
Heroes on SG-1, that's another amazing two-parter. So many of the two-parters are incredible. But if you want to sit down for 45 minutes and just have fun, Critical Mass.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I got to say, with something like Heroes or on Atlantis, something like Sunday, I have not watched those episodes very much. I have not rewatched them very much or very
It's
frequently.
tough, right?
Because I gotta be in a certain mindset. I know what it's going to do to me. I know how it's going to leave me feeling after it's over. So I've got to, I don't know, want to inflict a little emotional pain on myself before I go and watch Heroes and Sunday again.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's the same for a lot of SGU for me. I'm a lover of Stargate Universe. I'm not one of the haters, and I'm not one of the people that originally hated it and then 5 years later reevaluated their life and decided it was great. I thought it was great from the beginning, but again, that's long arcs. It's heavier, it's darker. There's not really a time when I'm like, I just want to put on one episode of SGU. It's more like, okay, I want to sit down and do a rewatch of the series because it's great. Having Time is probably my favorite SGU episode, and that one is a bit more of a standalone one.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the episode that I've watched more than any others. Maybe the pilot as well. But it's different. The arc based television. It's harder to just jump into when you want something to put on while you're having dinner, or you've made some popcorn and you want to sit back on a Saturday and have a glass of wine. With Stargate Universe, you're into one part of an overarching arc.
Exactly.
Is that it's more of an investment. So
yeah,
I love the series. I've always loved the universe, but it's harder for that thing. It's like saying Casino Royale is the best James Bond film. It's probably the best movie in the franchise, but it's missing some of those things that made James Bond James Bond. I love the movie, but is it the best James Bond film? I don't know. It's the best film in the franchise.
Yeah, I think you're right. SGU is, I think of it as a 40 episode story, right? So it's tough to pick one that I just want to, put on for the evening because I'm in the mood for SGU. For me, it would probably be Time or Lost. I like Lost in season 1, where they're, kind of skipping from gate to gate to gate, trying to catch destiny.
Yeah.
That's good. How about SG1? We've already talked about Descent. that's kind of an easy go-to for you. But is it your favorite episode, you think, of 214?
I wouldn't say so. No, it has that special place in my heart. But no, I maybe Lost City. Part one and part two are excellent. The Easy Way Out is Window of Opportunity. Biggest
Yeah.
fan favorite right there. I've probably put that one on more than most. That's just such a fun rewatch that never gets old.
Because it's fun and it makes you feel good and it makes you laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm there with you. For years and years, my favorite episode was the fifth race, but I finally had to give in and acknowledge that Lost City had supplanted it. Lost City's my favorite.
There's a good connection between those two as well. Like that's a good one too. Also, one of the things that I used to do a lot, if I wanted to watch a few episodes but not commit to an entire rewatch, I would like to just do every single one of the Replicator episodes as one sort of like celebration of replication, and just go in and watch each Replicator episode after a while and create this sort of like mini arc, which is that's always.
Yeah, celebration of replication. I love it. I've done some of those kind of, let's cluster all the episodes from one particular story together, and I've written these up as kind of mini watch lists for GateWorld. It's been a while since I did one, but yeah, you could do the Replicator story if you wanted something that's going to last more than one night, more than one day, but is not going to commit you to 2 months. Watch the Replicator arc, watch the Frigga Foss storyline. You know, pick your poison.
Yeah.
Okay, how about favorite characters?
Well, let's try to pick non-main characters, because that's such an easy one.
I like
it. Let's make it interesting, Darren. I can never get enough of Walter on SG-1. I love that Gary Jones had a greater and greater role throughout the series, and all the confusion about his name was always a lot of fun. So I'm a Gary Jones stan, number one.
Very good. That's a great choice.
Well, who would you go for as like a secondary character outside of the main cast?
Outside of the main cast? For SG-1 or franchise-wide?
SG-1. We'll move on to SGA after this.
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, I always loved seeing Jacob show up. I always loved seeing Braytak show up. I always loved seeing Martouf show up. I mean, it'd probably be Martouf, but he's gone by the beginning of season 4. So Martouf is maybe less of an obvious pick because there's so much of Stargate that is after his death.
Yeah. My mother would join you in some sadness about that. She wasn't a fan of the show, but when I was a kid and I went to my first convention, she came to one of the dinner events that came there, and it's JR Bourne, right? Sat at our table, and she thought he was just the most attractive man. So she was also sad even though she's not a fan of the show.
He's a handsome gentleman.
She's more of a Next Generation fan, and my dad was a Doctor Who fan. So I come from good sci-fi lineage, but I was the Stargate one.
Good, perfect. Yeah, and I had the chance to meet JR and interview him at a convention, and then I saw him again at GateCon several years ago, and he was helping to run the charity auction at GateCon in, I think, 2018. Proceeds were going to a charity that's very near and dear to his heart, so he was kind of helping to run the whole thing, and we got to connect a little bit there. That was really cool.
That's great. What was the charity?
Conventions, guys.
Should we plug it?
I believe it was the Canadian or the BC Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah. That's JR's charity, or one that he's personally connected with. Okay, how about Atlantis then? I won't make you pick a main character per se, but is there an Atlantis character?
I mean, if we're talking about characters, we're talking about characters that get killed off too quickly. I would go Peter Grodin. His death hit hard in season 1. But aside from that, of sort of longer term characters, I loved all of the Janai. I just thought that the work that they did into fleshing out this frenemy relationship with another civilization was something unique to the series that SG1 hadn't ever really managed to do. The Tok'ra were more clearly allies. The Tolan were just kind of standoffish. But what they did with the Janai of, this, there's an antagonism, but sometimes we work together. There was just so many nuances to that, and it always left you wanting to know more about this planet, about this society, about how they work. So I was always a big fan of the Janai episodes. So all of those characters, like Cole Meany was fantastic. I wish he was in it more. Augustus Colia, such a great villain, a recurring villain. I mean, there's a lot to choose from there.
Yeah, how do you feel about Colia's death?
Is anyone ever really dead?
Was it too soon? Was it? I mean, it felt to me like it was abrupt. That it was just kind of out of nowhere. He was there. He was the antagonist for that episode, Irresponsible, and then there was just this sort of really short, curt standoff and a gunshot, and he was gone.
Yeah, strange way to kill someone off, especially when you've got such a great actor, and it's Robert Davi, right?
Yeah, he's such a good actor.
Yeah, keep him around. But again, like I said, is anyone ever really dead in the show? So he could come back. I have full faith in the writers that there's there's always a technobabble or ascension way. Who knows, right? There's always some way to bring somebody back.
Yeah, I think Joe Malazzi's season 6 outline had some sort of reappearance of Colia. I'm not sure how or why, but they did bring him back. They brought him back as a hallucination in season 5. So it just takes the right story with those guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also loved Layden, Ryan Robbins' character, Layden Redeem. Yeah, I wish we'd seen more of him. I wish he'd gotten fleshed out a little bit more than he was, a little more three-dimensional. Because then Ryan went on to co-star on Sanctuary with Amanda Tapping as Henry, and his character is great because he's a regular. He gets more time to have his character fleshed out. Would have loved to see more Layden.
Would he be your answer for your favorite sort of secondary recurring character?
Yeah, for Atlantis, I mean, technically, somebody like Zelenka is recurring, not a part of the main cast. So David Nichols got to be my first pick.
Solid pick. I can't argue with that.
How about Universe? What makes Universe run for you?
Universe, it's harder to go that secondary route because it's such a smaller, contained. There's less people that just jump in and out, right? Like it's everyone on the ship. But I would go with Dr. Franklin and Brody as that sort of comic duo of the two of them. I thought they were both great.
Franklin, let's see now. Franklin's the one who went into the chair and got his brain sucked up.
And then Brody was the one that had brought a lot of comic relief.
Yeah, Brody was kind of our mainstay comic relief, along with the other scientists, Lisa Park and chat, help me out, Patrick Gilmore's character. We're on a delay, so they're not going to help me until we've already moved on. Dale Volker.
Volker, there you go, yeah.
Okay, so our main topic today is Stargate in 2026, and I want to get there. It's kind of relevant to what we had decided that we wanted to talk about originally, which was Stargate in Vancouver, the show's historical presence there, and hoping that they might come back for the new show. So that's suddenly very relevant because you and I kind of have been planning for a couple of months to have this chat about Vancouver and how awesome it would be to get Stargate production back in British Columbia. And now, as of yesterday, GateWorld broke the news that the Amazon MGM has decided that the main hub of the show is going to be in London. So their production offices will be there, their standing sets will be there, but they're also going to film all over the world. So they will have a unit in different places, presumably representing different alien planets, instead of the way they got so many
The same
planets out of
forest outside of
the
Vancouver, the same
GVRD
gravel
and
pit. Yeah,
the
yeah.
gravel pit, and yeah. The old joke, of course, is that every alien planet looks like a forest in British Columbia. Uh, but it grew on us, right? That's not a criticism. That's one of the things that we love about the show is all the green trees.
Yeah.
So let's start there. Let's start with Vancouver historically, and what Vancouver has meant to Stargate and what Stargate meant to Vancouver over those years of shows in production there at the Bridge Studios in Burnaby for 14 years.
Yeah, I mean it was huge for us in British Columbia. Uh, Stargate, because of the amount of VFX work and for how long and prolific the series was, contributed so much to the local film industry. Like in the 90s, the film industry was not the behemoth that we know of it today. In the 2000s, it wasn't either. But Stargate began to build up a lot of that, whether it's people that have just go through the doors to work on some set design, whether it's VFX houses. There's over 100 VFX houses and studios and stages in Vancouver now, and Stargate played a huge part in making that happen. And it became a destination for science fiction. You had the X-Files there beforehand,
Right.
but then you also had Battlestar Galactica decide to film in Vancouver. And The Last of Us, the first season, was filmed in Vancouver. There's a ton of the 100, a ton of science fiction has just come to Vancouver to film and take advantage of that ecosystem that built up around Stargate and some other tentpole productions.
And
It's
the
one thing
comic
to have
book
a
stuff,
movie.
right? All the Berlantiverse stuff, the Arrow and the Flash and all their spinoffs were all Vancouver productions.
Yeah, it's one thing to have movies filmed somewhere, but that's a limited production. When you have season after season after season of a show, you have that continuity. You have people in the trades who have some stability that actually have a career in it. Stargate is their career, that they are working full time on this show, and there's a predictable next season, and then the next season, and next season. A lot of people built their livelihoods around Bridge Studios in Burnaby, and Stargate was huge for that. So yeah, I wrote a piece in the Vancouver Sun after the new series was announced, saying that British Columbia should be lobbying hard to try to get the series back, because it's one of the most quintessentially Vancouver, BC-based series out there. There's a ton of references in the show. Kelowna, Jonas's planet,
Right.
That's a city here in British Columbia.
That's local.
Yeah, the Nightwalkers episode was set in a place called Steveston, which is Richmond. Steveston is a small town. Sorry, it's Steveston next to Richmond, which is also in British Columbia. There's a lot of good little fun Easter eggs for British Columbians in the show, and so I thought it was worth fighting for. And my background in politics and communications, it felt like putting something down on paper and calling up some media contacts to make it happen, and bugging a few folks in the premier's office as well to let them know, hey, this should be something we're working on. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed to hear that Amazon decided to go to London, but I got to say the ecosystem that London has for doing science fiction is also incredible. It's not like they're moving production to Chicago. London has quite the acumen. I mean, we mentioned earlier Doctor Who, which is filmed in Wales, but the UK has a great sort of history doing fantastic science fiction. I love Blake 7. That's perhaps a massively underrated science fiction series from back in the day. That was written by Terry Nation, the creator of the Daleks. He went on to write Blake 7, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that one's on my list. I haven't gotten to it yet.
It's like a gritty. Before gritty sci-fi was a thing, it's like a precursor to that. Of like, there's so much of what like modern Battlestar Galactica, anti-hero type stuff you can trace back to something like Blake 7. And this also kind of comes back to our earlier talk about VFX quality and budget. I mean, the last two seasons of Doctor Who have been very disappointing, despite having Disney money behind them. like big budget Disney Plus stuff behind BBC.
Right.
And it didn't quite line up with what fans are wanting, right? So big money doesn't always guarantee that, and I think a lot of folks would rather have less of a budget and better plot if you have to choose between those two things, right? I mean, Doctor Who is famous for people having poorly constructed tinfoil monsters and styrofoam rocks thrown at people, but there's still a love for that series. So I'm excited that Stargate will get a big budget, but I think at the end of the day, all of us fans, we would always take a lower budget for good plot and great characters. So I hopefully we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's there's a lot of us who would take more episodes that are more cheaply made with a lower budget, that have the story and the characters. Because with Stargate, that's the shows that we love. Now, I don't necessarily expect that from something like some of the big streaming shows in the genre that I watch these days, like Foundation. I don't necessarily expect Foundation to have 22 episodes a year with a bunch of little standalones and lots of character development for secondary and tertiary characters, because that's not the kind of project that is. They're telling one story. So this is one of the things about Stargate in 2026 and moving forward is I feel like I, along with a lot of other fans who are looking forward to the new show, have to get our heads around the idea that if it ends up being something like 10 episodes, which is what we're anticipating right now, that's kind of one big picture story with some other smaller stories in it, but it's not an episodic series per se, which is to say they're not 10 standalone stories like classic Stargate used to be. It's a different kind of storytelling that's set in the same universe.
Yeah, the TV landscape has changed so much over the last 15 years since we last saw new Stargate. We can't expect, and I see people on Reddit and forums all the time saying like, oh, we'll burn it down if they don't do 22 episodes of SG, whatever the new series is going to be called.
Right.
And it's just completely unrealistic. We're not going to get that. That's not what the television landscape looks like anymore. I will be excited if we get 10. I'll be happy if we get 8. That's just the way that television is being made these days. And it's also a golden age of television in terms of quality as well, though. So if we're getting great quality, then I'm not going to kvetch about that too much. Sure, we'd all love 24 episodes, 22 episodes, but it's not going to happen. That's not the reality of television production anymore. So the sooner we all accept that, the sooner we will be excited about the amazing content that we're hopefully going to get from Martin and the team.
I think that's right. The number of episodes that we're going to get for any show, not just Stargate, but for any show, the number of episodes is largely determined by the outlet. Where is it going to broadcast or stream? Who is it being made for? If it's being made for a streamer, then they have a different economic calculus to make.
Yeah.
When they're not, right? We're getting ads on streaming now, but their budgets are not predominantly made to get eyeballs on ads. They're meant to drive subscribers and fight against the constant churn of subscribing and unsubscribing. Even on basic cable, hey, here in the States, Stargate was on Sci-Fi Channel, and we got 20 episodes a season for the later seasons. And guess what Sci-Fi is doing right now? They're doing 10 episodes a season, and they're doing a season every 18 to 24 months for their original shows like Resident Alien and The Ark. That's 10 episodes a season, and there's not a season every year. And that's just basic cable. It seems like the only place left that I can think of that is still doing 20 plus episode seasons is broadcast television. If you could get a Stargate show on NBC, you might get 24 episodes out of it if they didn't cancel it after the first 4.
Yeah, that's just what we're facing now. And, it totally depends on the show. It's funny you bring up The Ark, because I think that's a lot of fun. Is that amazing television? No, not at all. But it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. It's almost like this flashback to that old school sci-fi way of telling stories. It feels like it's almost episodic television, and it's weird that it's not 20 episodes, because some of those episodes feel like kind of cheesy filler from time to time. So I don't know if it works as well when there's only 10 episodes of the arc. I just finished watching Pluribus, and I think that was 8 episodes, and the ending just totally snuck up on me, and I went, "Oh wow, it's over now." Okay, we can't wait till next season, a year and a half from now.
Yeah, it's I've been watching Silo, and that's 10 episodes a season, and
So good.
it's okay. So it's an adaptation of a novel. I understand that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, so they can structure it around a season of television, a 10-episode structure. But
they've done something strange with that one, because I love the books. It's three books by Hugh Howey, and instead of it being 3 seasons, they've done 4 seasons. So they've sort of split it in an awkward way. And as much as I love the books, and I've been very much enjoying the show, but the second season drags a little bit. And if you've read the books, it's hard not to say, what was the thinking behind this, aside from, we can stretch it out to get us
why stretch this part? Yeah.
Of television, which is a little disappointing, because you go on Reddit and you see people being like, "Oh, season 1 was great, season 2 is so slow," and it's like, well, it's because they've taken one book and now they've cut it in half, and now they've had to drag to fill it out, and it doesn't quite, the pacing was off. So it's a great story. I can tell you it's going in a fantastic direction. If you haven't read the books, there's good things in store. But yeah, the second season drags because they made a production decision to drag it out. So yeah, more episodes isn't always a good thing.
And I saw that. I've not read the books, but I saw that they had decided to do it in 4 seasons for adapting 3 novels. So it's the middle book. That's interesting, because with other properties, it's often the last book that ends up getting kind of drawn out, right? Harry Potter gets 2 movies for the final novel. Hunger Games, I think, did the same thing. The last story gets 2 movies. But it's the second novel that they've split into 2 seasons?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm watching it right now. I'm watching season 2 right now, and it's gripping.
Forgive the pacing. It's great. And I watched the first season, and I didn't want to live in the world of streaming where it takes a year and a half to see the next season. So then I went and read all the books. I couldn't contain myself. So that's something else. I mean, it does give you time to read the books. It won't be the case for Stargate, but other things where it's IPs that they bought, it does bring fans in to buy the books, which is always a good thing in my opinion.
It speaks to the quality of the story if the adaptation makes you want to read the source material.
Yeah.
So I had the chance when SG-1 and Atlantis and Universe were in production. I had the opportunity to visit Vancouver several times. Went up there and visited production, visited the sets, and talked to cast and crew on an annual basis. And over the years that I've been doing this, I've made some real friendships with a lot of the people who made the shows. And so getting a chance to visit with them again is just wonderful. And seeing the energy and the excitement up there after the new Stargate show was announced, people wanting Stargate to come back to BC, not just so that they personally might have a shot at their character coming back or, getting work behind the scenes on a production, but just because of what Stargate has meant to Vancouver over the years. So we have a new show. It's going into production. Reportedly, they're going to start filming this fall. But they're going to film in London. But we're also holding out hope of those other locations. So as I was talking with David yesterday about the fact that, these big streaming shows like Fallout on Amazon, they shoot largely their standing sets, right? What's inside the silo, what's inside Stargate Command is going to be a standing set at Bridge Studios or wherever a show is shooting. So a lot of the internals I expect are probably going to shoot in London, but the externals, a lot of those alien planets, those exteriors, are going to be in different countries all over the world. So what's the case for Vancouver for having if not home base for the new Stargate show in Vancouver, at least a full-fledged Vancouver unit?
I mean, I think the fans would like that just because of the history, right, and the familiarity with a lot of those things. And as we made the joke earlier about, alien planets all look like the forest of the Pacific Northwest. Well, that's because of how much sci-fi has been filmed in and around Vancouver. So there is an expectation amongst the fans that there will be some planets that have to look that way. So hopefully that means we'll get at least a second unit crew out here in Vancouver at some point. So fingers crossed for that. I mean, I was trying to rack my brain of locations that have already been established within the universe that we might revisit that would necessitate coming back. I mean, my first thought was the Tolan homeworld, which is filmed at Simon Fraser University, and I'm like, oh, never mind, got destroyed.
Yeah, got blown up. Sorry.
So I was like, which locations do we have that still exist that haven't been destroyed, that are already established places that were shot around the greater Vancouver area?
Yeah, what did you come up with? I mean, there's some of those really famous, iconic stuff, like Plaza of Nations was used in Bane and maybe other episodes. You got Jack's Cabin. You still every once in a while see Vancouver-based productions use that location.
Yeah, it's just the ones that are absolutely iconic that you would have to do there. I was sort of drawing a blank on that. I mean, if we return to any of the stuff from like 2001, 2010, I mean that's a specific area. Although who knows what that happened with that timeline now. Yeah, it's you'd have to sort of go through all the shooting locations and see what's still there. I mean, there's obviously places like the yellow sulfur dunes from season 1, but there's not necessarily a compelling reason to revisit that. Like, that was just a cool place that they shot as a planet location. I was thinking more along the lines of like iconic places that you would logically revisit that are already set and established in a specific area in Metro Vancouver, and that I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You've got the Tok'ra, the new Tok'ra homeworld shows up in Continuum, but that's where the city is kind of a wide VFX shot, and then it's sound stages. Same with Dakara. The establishing shots of Dakara are VFX shots, and then the internals are shot on sound stages. So we could certainly revisit a lot of familiar planets, regardless of where they shoot it.
Yeah.
But some planets, who knows how many planets are going to appear in the new show, but at least one of them has to look like a BC forest.
Well, we'll continue lobbying for that. We'll get the BC Park Service to launch a campaign.
So I read your article with great interest in the Sun. How was the response to it? Did you get any feedback?
Yeah, I had a lot of positive responses from folks. A lot of people that didn't actually realize that Stargate was filmed in Vancouver, but that
really,
that just shows
interesting
the level of attention that people give to certain things. Yeah, like I said, I did speak to some people that are involved in government and tried to sort of say like, hey, this is something that's important to a lot of people. But I'm not just coming at this as a nerd. I'm coming at this as someone that's making a case for the film industry. And one of the things that I mentioned in the article is a lot of the stuff coming out of the United States with the current administration talking about putting tariffs on foreign productions. And there's a lot of questions on how that could work. Like, how do you tariff something that is being made by a production company based in this country, with a film crew based in this country, with a distributor based in, like, it's all so international these days. Like, how do you put a tariff on something that's such an intricate international production? So there's a lot of questions surrounding whether or not that's even possible. But nonetheless, the threats of it are something that need to be taken seriously. And it's not an incorrect issue that Trump is pointing out. I mean, the United States has lost a lot of production to places like Canada. And now Stargate's going to the UK. That's once again another country. So filmmaking has gone positively global, and there's a lot of jurisdictions that compete. I mean, here in BC, one of the reasons that we have Stargate in the first place is Vancouver wanted to be Hollywood North, and there was pretty great tax credits to do so. Toronto had the same as well. So Toronto and Vancouver basically became the two big Canadian cities where you would do productions. And Georgia in the States started doing something similar and bringing a lot of folks in. So there's a lot of these jurisdictions that decided, let's create a tax policy that just absolutely incentivizes people to come here. And that is the state of modern filmmaking now. Like it's like, let's do a little dip of a tax credit here and a little dip of a tax credit here. You can finance your project with a lot of these tax credits. Some of them have more strings attached than others. Stuff like mandating 50% crew being local or things like that. But it's different. It's a patchwork across the world. So folks at Amazon, I'm sure, have a pretty detailed stakeholder engagement map of all the different ways that they can reach out to different states and countries and cities that have different forms of incentives. And how do we make this work for a way that is cost effective? It's harder to compete in that type of world. And like I said, Vancouver was an early adopter of that type of incentive, but the world has caught up and in some ways surpassed British Columbia.
You're touching on issues that of course are so important economically to the city of Vancouver, to the province. What's the impact of Vancouver no longer being Hollywood North, of the sort of loss of productions that you have experienced, that you go into a little bit in the article?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing was COVID as well. That was a huge shock to the system for a lot of production companies, and a lot of things went on hold, and a lot of projects got scrapped or halted. And then when things came back, they decided, oh, it's better to do it closer to home rather than schlepping up to Canada. So that was something that a lot of folks faced, and that certainly had ramifications. But I mean, we're looking at an industry that used to bring in over $4 billion that has declined, and that was a big contribution to not just our provincial GDP, but that's folks' livelinhoods, right? Yeah. That's the guy that runs craft services. That's the guy that does set design. That's the folks that do makeup. Huge industry around all that. And no, I won't say that it's gone. I mean, there's still a ton of productions going on in Vancouver. It's just that I was sort of pushing for, in this whole world where we're now facing a lot of these external pressures, Stargate was going to be a test for that, because you can look past any production not deciding to go here because, oh, well, there's a better tax credit in Georgia or something like that. You can never really know what factors there were, but yeah. Stargate was unique because it was so Vancouver based. It was there was a sense of belonging. There's that history, there's that connection. So Stargate choosing not to go into Vancouver, that's really the only thing where you can say, well, we lost out on that one. That one should have been ours and we lost out on that. Any other, film or TV production that ends up shooting anywhere else, you can't necessarily feel entitled to that, yeah. or any sort of reasonable expectation. You're like, oh, we didn't get that one. But Stargate was ours. Like it's in the DNA and the lifeblood of the Vancouver film industry. So for that to no longer be the case, it's disappointing. As I said, I do hope we get at least a second unit crew here to do some stuff. But I also, we had 15 fantastic years of Stargate being in Vancouver. And I'm really excited for all the British fans that are going to be able to have something similar. I'm a dual citizen with the UK, so I'll come over and be a British man for a while.
You win either way.
Yeah, but no, I'm really excited for folks in London to be able to have that, and it'll be an amazing experience, and I can't wait to see what happens with it.
How does this typically work? I was so interested in your article and in your experience in public policy and government. How does this typically work between city interests, provincial government, and I imagine industry organizations in sort of going out and pitching and trying to solicit productions, trying to lure productions to come? Basically, the thesis of your essay is that prior to the decision to go to London, it was sort of incumbent on BC to make the case to go out and get this production because it was important. How does that typically happen?
it wasn't necessarily obviously coming back here, right? And that was sort of the argument that I was making, especially given the current climate. So it was incumbent upon government and folks to take this seriously. And, it's obviously not the most pressing issue for government. I wasn't saying that it should be, but I was sort of laying out the case of how this one can be, the loss of Stargate could be interpreted in a way that the loss of any other production wouldn't be. So that's purely from a politics and an optics side of things. But yeah, we've got some fantastic, like the Motion Picture Association of British Columbia, Innovate BC. These are organizations that bring a lot of producers and production companies and whatnot all together. And they're on the ball. They care about this stuff. It's just sometimes being able to get in the room with Amazon executives or to kind of craft policy that would bring people back. If our tax credit scheme is not competitive anymore, then that's the conversation that we need to have. It's less about begging Martin to come back to Vancouver. It's not his call. It's about presenting us as the option, the logical choice. And we already had a leg up in the history and the fact that there's so many people that worked on the show, cast and crew that are already here. A lot of that infrastructure still exists. That we already had that advantage. So the fact that it ended up going to London just shows that we weren't competitive enough in all the other ways and how things have changed over the last 14 years.
I imagine the facilities have to be there. I know that Bridge has expanded quite substantially since Stargate was shooting there. VFX, as you touched on in the article, VFX has exploded over the last 20 years in Vancouver, in the Vancouver area. So I don't know, I'm just armchair quarterbacking here, trying to put myself in the headspace of Amazon execs as to how the factors get weighed and how the decision ultimately gets made. It's got to be a certain degree of tax incentives and the strength of the American dollar relative to the currency exchange, production facilities, how long you can rent stage space. We know Amazon owns stage space in various parts of the world, including London, including I think Toronto.
Yeah, and I imagine the fact that Amazon already has such a footprint in London was a big motivating factor for that. I mean, London itself is not your first thought when you think of the film industry. Like a lot of it's outside of London, right? But it's clear that Amazon has physical locations that they have access to, and when you're putting that together in your logistics sheet, that's probably quite heavily weighted, as opposed to, we've got some cast members and people with experience in Vancouver. It's cheaper to put them on a flight than it is to find studio space. And if Amazon, I don't know if anything at Amazon has been made at Bridge Studios. So would you even necessarily return to Bridge? Probably not, right? So, those types of relationships matter.
Yeah. Do you know offhand? Because Bridge was the go-to for MGM for many years.
Yeah.
MGM, of course, has been owned by Amazon since 2022. Do you know offhand if MGM exited Bridge at some point? I haven't looked at the list of productions that they've shot there in the last 5 or 10 years.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, because they had a standing relationship with Bridge Studios and were using studio space for many years with Stargate, but also beyond that. They shot The Outer Limits there. I think they shot Dead Like Me there.
Yeah,
and some other MGM
productions. That was the cafe set that was used when Daniel was ascended and having the coffee with Anubis.
In Threads, Coffee with Anubis. That's what they should have called the episode. Coffee with Anubis. That would have given away the twist, though.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the conversation from somebody who is in British Columbia and an expert in all these things. So thank you very much. I want to talk more about the new Stargate series, what your hopes are as a fan, and let's give some hot takes and make some crazy predictions here for what is going to happen to Stargate in 2026. Guys in the chat, if you have any questions for Andrew or myself, drop them in and tag at gateworld.net so that I make sure to see them. Raj Luthra asks, Andrew, what storylines do you want to see in the new series?
Well, picking up on our earlier discussion, I think the obvious direction is public disclosure of the program.
Okay.
I know that it's been commented on before that that's really only one story, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's almost a setting. Like, yeah, there's the plot thing. If you want to actually cover the disclosure of the program and how the world reacts, sure, that's an interesting story. That's an arc. You could obviously do a full season of television based on that as the point. I don't know if that's what fans are looking for. I mean, that's not really Stargate. We want fantastic off-world adventures and quips and humor and spaceships and all the things that make us love it with the characters that we like, and there'll be new characters as well. And exploring the galaxy. That's the essence of this. Contemporary humans in the current year off exploring the galaxy and growing and contributing back to the galaxy as we are from a modern Earth standpoint. That's sort of what has made the show so unique and so great. So I don't know if I'm a huge political nerd. I'll watch every political show. I'm a huge West Wing fan. I would love a show about the politics of suddenly this becoming public. I don't know if that's what people are looking for in terms of the actual plot of this of the show or of the season. However, what if it's set in once that's already happened? Like, we're already on the other side of disclosure, and that's more of the setting. The plot isn't about disclosure. It's about this is what a Stargate program looks like with all the things that you want, which is, off-world expeditions and everything going on in a new world where people know about the Stargate. And, over time, you might get some stuff about how that went down and how that's changed things and how, it's fundamentally changed what life on Earth is like when now everyone knows that we're not alone. That's super interesting, but it still allows you to tell Stargate stories as opposed to the story itself being about disclosure, which, I know I would love, but I don't know if that's something that the majority of the fan base is clamoring for the entire show to be about.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different opinions on whether the Stargate should be public in the new show. A lot of folks approach it as kind of basic to the DNA of Stargate, that it's a secret, that the public doesn't know that we're out there doing this and fighting aliens and saving the planet. I could imagine it both ways. I could see a story that is set in a world where the Stargate is public and has been public for 10 years. That would be a different kind of storytelling in the Stargate universe. But yeah, what about all the new technologies that we've pulled back through the gate over decades now? New medical technologies, power generation. That's just Naquita generators have the ability to revolutionize a lot about our planet.
And how do you continue that thing that was always so unique to the show, which was that it's modern humans, it's the people of today that are doing this when so much has changed. I mean, I loved how much the Towery advanced over time. We're getting our own ships and upgrading our own technology. That was so cool from a fan perspective of, you need to know the lore, but like, this is why we have spaceships now, because, go back to when we were building Prometheus, and, that's really cool to the fans. But Amazon's going to want to introduce a whole bunch of new people. I mean, they've got a platform that is worldwide. There's going to be a lot of folks that have never seen Stargate before that are going to jump on. They're going to see promotional materials for this. How do you make that accessible to people that don't need to know, well, the reason that we suddenly have spaceships is because X, Y, and Z, like, make sure you go back and watch this.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell, right? But also, we're 15 years past any time that Stargate has happened, and what is the world that we're finding ourselves in? How do you, like, logically, if you're following in from SG1, so much should have changed. We should have seen so much advancement. That's almost overwhelming to somehow communicate to new fans, but also those of us that are huge fans that need to be filled in on what happened over the last 15 years. That's pretty tough. So, maybe the program was shut down for 15 years, and therefore there's almost like a nothing conveniently happened for 15 years. The IOA, or there was a shutdown or something, and we got to catch things up. So that way it still feels like Earth today that we're coming into. I mean, I brought up the West Wing earlier. They started having issues later on in the seasons because they had made a choice in season 2 or whatever to not have 9/11 happen during 2001. 9/11 didn't happen in their universe,
Hmm.
which, at the time you obviously don't want to do an episode about that. It's very sensitive issue. But 5 seasons later, you're still talking about a contemporary America, but it's America where
Yeah.
9/11 never happened.
Yeah.
That's tricky. So how do you go to, like, we know that Henry Hayes was president in the early 2000s, and like where do you go from that? There's such a gap in our understanding, but what is integral to the DNA of the show is that it's contemporary now. So it'll be very interesting to see what Martin does to kind of square that circle, because that's so Stargate, but it's also a lot of catching up to do.
That's you mentioned ships, particularly the fact that we have a fleet of ships with advanced weapons and shields technology. We have the Asgard computer core, at least installed in the Odyssey. It's really tough, because if one of the selling points for Stargate is that it's us, it's contemporary, it's our world, it's our military. I mean, that's the challenge, because so much you would think so much has evolved over the course of the years that the program's been activated and the show's been off the air. Things will have progressed further. Ships get more advanced. Technology gets more advanced. We get more discoveries, and it starts to not quite look like our Earth anymore. So yeah, I don't envy Martin and sort of resolving some of those challenges, because you still want it to feel like us. You don't want it to feel like Star Trek, like it's, the 23rd century in the early 21st century.
Yeah, so that's so fundamental to the DNA. And so here's my pitch, Darren. I've got a pitch.
Okay.
I'll put my writer hat on.
I want to hear it.
And I'll draw a parallel to where I think the new Star Wars movies went wrong.
Ooh, spicy.
You had all this buildup with, the rebels defeating the Empire, and then we're we're going to do a new trilogy. Let's kind of undo all that right off the bat, and like you're back to being the scrappy underdogs, because the First Order is suddenly now the Empire again, and they're really big, and didn't really quite work. I think there was a missed opportunity there. You're almost faced something similar with Stargate, where we beat the Goa'uld, the Jaffa are free, the replicators are gone. We did 2 seasons of the Ori arc. Why not, instead of going back, like the Ori was an attempt to do that again, right? Of like, okay, we had false gods. How about real gods? Like, let's amp it up. I don't know if you can really put steroids into gods and move it up to one extra level, right?
Yeah.
Where do you go from here? Instead of trying to repeat that same formula, I mean, what about the fact that we're the big guys in the galaxy now, right? Instead of trying to find a way to make us the scrappy underdog, what is the inversion of that? Like, could the First Order in Star Wars have been, they're the terrorist group, right? Like the rebels in the original were insurgents. Like one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. What's the contingent that doesn't like the fact that the Tauri are the top dog in the Milky Way now, right? Like that could be a pretty interesting dynamic that would shift. It would still keep the DNA Stargate, but it wouldn't mean we're doing the same thing a third time now of Goa'uld, Ori, and now whatever Ori on steroids are going to be.
And they were trying to take the Lucian Alliance in that direction, right? Make them a sort of insurgency, kind of upstart, with gaining enough power and enough ruthless leaders that they were trying to take Earth down a peg, with relative success.
And plenty of room for good social commentary there, which is a staple of all great sci-fi.
Yeah, I like it. That's it's going to be really interesting in 2026 to start to hear some of these story pieces. Where is the show set? What is the state of Earth's technology? Is the Stargate program still run by the military? If it's hasn't been disclosed to the public, is it run by some sort of international organization? Is it, is the gate itself even located in the States anymore? All these sorts of questions, I think, are going to play into just the basic setting. What is the show? Where is it? What is it about? Which I think we're going to learn sooner than later. I feel that we're going to start to get some of those pieces this year. Amazon's a very secretive company. They're going to do their best to keep a lid on as much as possible before they're ready to start rolling out, their promotional process and trailers and whatnot. But I feel like before the year's out, we're going to start to get a hold of some of those pieces.
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on your scoop, by the way. You broke the news. It wasn't, Entertainment Weekly or anything it was GateWorld that broke the news on the London production. So that's congratulations. I think we'll see more great things from GateWorld.
Thank you. I sure hope so. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a fun couple of years until the show gets here. We're still thinking with the production timeline, late 2027 is about the earliest that we'll see the show. So I'm still talking about it in terms of a couple of years time scale. Mm-hmm. So Stargate in 2026. I asked you to think about some predictions that you might have, and they can be educated predictions. They can be wild and crazy. So I want to hear you guys in the chat. What are your predictions for Stargate in 2026? Between now and December 31st, what's going to happen? What are we going to find out? Be realistic if you want to, or be wild and wacky if you want to. The disclaimer that I need to give here before we get into our predictions is because I have sources in the production, right? I have the ability to ask Martin Garrow questions. I've all of my predictions do not come from anything that I know. This is me speculating. This is educated guesses, and we're just going to have a bit of fun. Also, I have one that might be a little bit out there that I'll get to at the end. And hey, I don't want to see anybody going on the internet and saying GateWorld is reporting that. That's not what we're doing here. This is the guy who runs GateWorld shooting his mouth off and speculating and having a bit of fun. Okay, clear? GateWorld is not reporting. We're just gonna have some fun. Okay, so my first prediction. This is an educated guess based on the production timeline, and based on as of yesterday, we now know that Amazon's aiming for a fall 2026 start date for principal photography. My first prediction is we're going to know at least 90% of the main cast of the new show by September. I'll say September 1st. I think whether it's announced by the studio or it's come out through reporting or social media, I think we're going to know most of the cast by the start of September.
So when you asked for my predictions, my first one is one that we already taled about, though, which was we're going to see 8 to 10 episodes is going to be the announced production number of episodes.
8 to 10. You want to put your foot down? And what do you think it's going to be? 8 or 10? Or 9?
Let's go 10. I feel like Apple TV does more the 8 and Amazon does more the 10. So if you gun to my head, I'll say 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Although I've seen 8 episode shows on Amazon. Fallout is 8 episodes. And let's see, Silo is 10. Silo's on Apple TV, and that one's 10. So they do go either way. It's really interesting to kind of speculate about how those budgets are put together and how the decision is made that, we have this much story, or we have this much story, or we're Stranger Things, and we have a whole, sack full of cash from Netflix, and we're going to do, 6 or 7 episodes, but every single one of them is going to be a movie.
I wouldn't want the movie length stuff. I think I would be happy with like 55 to 60 minute shows. Like, let's not go back to 42 minutes because we don't have to leave time for commercials. But trying to cram it all into movie length stuff, I don't know if that format would work. But maybe Stranger Things isn't the best example given how everyone has collectively lost their mind over the last season being terrible. I didn't watch it, so I can't weigh in.
I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if it's terrible.
I dropped off after the first season. I thought it was fun, but
I imagine they spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah. But hey, let's use that to pivot into another prediction that I've got.
Okay.
I think that Amazon is going to start reaching out to influencers and like YouTube reactors and trying to get them to start watching the classic show. I've seen a lot of stuff on how like Gen Z is discovering Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation because there are YouTube reactors and people on TikTok that are being like, oh my God, like they talked about a pretty serious issue about, this social issue, or, this episode was about racism. And like, there's a desire for that good quality television that's talking about real issues that we are not getting from, Star Trek Academy or whatever the new one is, or even Star Trek Discovery. I suffered through all of Discovery. It had some good ones, but I didn't love it. Strange New Worlds I've enjoyed, but yeah, there's these younger generations that are discovering what great sci-fi used to be made. And I think Amazon has a lot of really smart PR people and folks in the marketing department that are going to start reaching out to some, digital influencers and people with reaction video channels and trying to get them to watch the old Stargate and perhaps trying to drum up that younger audience, because there's a lot there. Like that type of old school episodic TV that doesn't get made anymore. There is a yearning for that. The 2000s are really back right now, Darren. So trying to get people into that. I could see them doing that. Their marketing team really trying to push the older content that they've got on Prime around the world and try to drum up some interest in the franchise. So that way, when it launches, it's not about building up this new base, that there's already some new younger fans that are ready to jump in on day one.
If Amazon was strategic about actually going out and doing a promotional campaign like that would be great. I would love to see them do something that was so proactive toward fandom before the show premiered. TikTok though, man, you got to be right. That's a whole generation of people are discovering Stargate and 90s sci-fi because they, some reactor that they follow on TikTok or Instagram is talking about it. I have seen a lot of with a lot of folks now reacting against the short seasons, against the 10 episode, 8 episode seasons of television. A lot of people want to binge something. A lot of people want to have something on and invest with characters over the course of weeks or months as they binge watch it. So, they might love a Silo or a Pluribus, but then they want something that has 200 episodes or 300 episodes or 500 episodes. And so they're going back and they're discovering 90s TV stuff from the previous generation, like you say, that they can sit with and enjoy, right? That's kind of the fun of a long show like that. 22 episodes a season is you can kind of marinate in it a little bit, and not every episode has to be a banger.
They all weren't. That's for sure.
They all weren't. Okay, my next prediction. I'm thinking of licensees and merchandise for Stargate in 2026 and beyond, because it's one of the few kind of official things that we've been able to cover news-wise on GateWorld over the last 15 years. There have still been some active official licensees putting out Stargate merch over the years. We've seen some novels, we've seen comic books, we've seen a role-playing game. Just recently, in the last few years, we've started seeing these ships, right? So with Eagle Moss first, and now with Master Replicas, we got the old ship model line. I'm thrilled that these are being put out. We got a few pop figures. Those are officially licensed. But here's my prediction. By the end of 2026, because there's a new Stargate show, because it's officially been announced, it's in production, and there's a production pipeline for the merch that companies want to sell for a new Stargate show. I think we're going to get 3 new Stargate licensees announced by the end of the year. Now, we're not going to see their stuff. We're not going to see their wares on the shelves yet. But I think we're going to get at least 3 new licensees announced, so that we have some stuff, right? Because when the show comes around in 27, or when it shows up, we're going to want to go out and buy the stuff, buy the toys, buy the lunch pails, buy the t-shirts. I want Stargate stuff. I mean, I know we're not as big as Star Trek. We'll probably never be as big as Star Trek, but surely we can get more stuff than we have now.
But we'll always be better than Star Trek.
Better, stronger, faster.
I think you're right. I mean, it sort of comes back to my stuff about, how Amazon has a crack marketing and PR department. I mean, these folks are going to be busy, and they've got an existing IP which they can exploit, and I fully expect them to do so. And if that means lunch pails, I don't know if that's still a thing, but the hats and t-shirts and all sorts of stuff is coming. I think you're totally right. I did notice that Battlestar Galactica, they just their video game IP is just moved to another company, because it was with
interesting.
I think it was Slytherin that did Deadlock.
They did Deadlock,
which was a lot of fun. And now there's a new,
same
almost like
company
an
that did
FTL
the same company that did Stargate, same publisher that did Stargate Timekeepers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that there's a new Battlestar game that's coming out, and it was a different company, and they've acquired the rights, which is why Deadlock's now, I think, hard to find. It's no longer on some stuff. So
yeah, and that'd be the downside of licensed, things like video games and novels and the audiobooks with Big Finish, for example, is when the license expires, those products go away. The companies can't keep selling them. They're not even going to be listed on their websites anymore.
Yeah, that's a disappointing thing. If you don't already have it downloaded on your Steam account or whatever, it just disappears, and the digital rights.
And when there's no physical for something like Deadlock or Timekeepers, you either have it in your Steam library or you don't have it.
Yeah. But I was signed up for the beta test for Stargate Worlds back in the day, and that never came. So
yeah. What was that experience like? Was there no beta for you to ever get into?
There wasn't. I was just on the list. But there was a lot of excitement for that. That was like 2008 or something.
Yeah.
I went through, before this, I went through my Gmail, which I never delete anything from, and just put in Stargate to see like a timeline of things of like, oh, I bought the Atlantis season 3 box set. Here's my Amazon email here when I bought that, and all that kind of stuff to kind of reflect on my history with the franchise. And I saw that of like, oh, I was registered for the beta test of Stargate Worlds and a bunch of things like that. And it's funny how you look back on little parts of your life and you're like, oh, yeah, like that it's a touch point. There's so much nostalgia. And we were talking about what my fandom was for Stargate. So much of it because of that time in my life. It's a very special franchise for me. When you're growing up, like that was middle school and high school. That was a big thing for me. I love the series, and I listened to every single audio commentary on all the DVD box sets, and that's one of the things that got me into writing. Like I love writing. I have an appreciation for creative writing and for film production. Because I listened to Peter DeLuise making stupid jokes on a DVD commentary all the time, and all that behind the scenes stuff is so fascinating. It's actually a real shame that we don't have that with shows anymore. The audio tracks, so everything's on streaming now. That there's not an ability to switch over to I think that would be great. And I think something like Stargate, where they did DVD commentaries for every damn episode. If Amazon wanted to put those as a separate audio track on the streaming, I think it would be a big hit.
That would be really valuable.
I loved that. That got me into so much of writing, and my appreciation for film production and what goes on behind the scenes was informed by these people. Listening to Brad Wright talk and listening to Richard Dean Anderson talk, like all these different perspectives. They did such a great job of curating different voices for all the different director commentaries that I feel like I learned an awful lot.
And it was great for fandom, right? Stargate production for years and years talked about the fact that the fans are part of the extended family. And we felt like part of the Stargate family, not because, we hung out just with Sam and Jack and Daniel and Teal'c and Janet, but because we had access to that behind the scenes stuff, right? Those of us who went deep and went to conventions and listened to interviews or listened to audio commentaries of episodes over and over again, you felt like you were a family, not just with SG-1, but you were part of the larger family with Amanda and Michael and Martin Wood and Andy Makita and James Bamford. I miss that. It's the audio commentary is kind of going away, and I think you're right. Amazon would be well advised to consider that sort of bonus content on whatever platform it shows up on.
Yeah, like I'm a fan of a lot of series, but Stargate's the only one that I know the name of so many people behind the scenes. Why? Because of those audio commentaries, because you've actually sat down and listened to that person reflect upon their experiences for a 43-minute episode, right? You get to know these names and the familiarity Like, why do you know Richard Hudolin? Like, oh,
Yeah.
why are these names? Like, why do you know the casting directors and why do you know the production designers? It's not just because you're so keen and you follow the credits after the end of it, which, to be fair, you do when you see it 200 times. But there's something about, you've actually heard these people talk about their experiences, and that's a really cool thing that David's doing over on Dial the Gate, where there are these names that from the show that you heard talk on a commentary 20 years ago, that now you're seeing them do a retrospective, and it's really cool what he's doing there to bring a lot of those folks on there. So I love his content, and I'm always excited to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. Scourge77 in the chat says, bring back physical media too, please. We asked this question when David and I had a longer conversation with Martin Garrow at the end of the year, which is, somebody asked, is the new show going to be on DVD and Blu-ray at some point? And he didn't know. It's too early, apparently, to know if Amazon has that as part of the plan. That's kind of a weird thought, right? Just like your video games going away when they get delisted. If you only have a streaming service to watch a new Stargate show, because they don't, for whatever reason, they don't release a physical version of it. That's kind of a weird thought. Star Trek, the modern Star Trek shows, I feel like most or all of them have seen physical releases. But then I can think of a bunch of streaming shows that just haven't. And some of them are Amazon. Some of them are Amazon shows where, right, their business is about driving subscribers. Pretty much exclusively, not entirely exclusively, but they want subscribers, so it's in their interest, right? Netflix shows. My daughter and I watch Shadow and Bone on Netflix. She loves the book series that's adapted from, and so I went to buy her the Blu-ray for Christmas, and it doesn't exist because Netflix wants your subscriber dollars. They don't want your Blu-ray dollars.
And I'm guilty of it too. I've got all the box sets in a bookshelf in the other room. And yet, how often do I actually pull them out, or I just turn on Prime and pull up the exact episode that I want, instead of like, okay, here's season 7, pull that out, find the one that has Lost City, take that out of the thing, put it into it gets a whole thing, whereas you're just on the couch, you put it on. And it's probably not great for the environment that I'm streaming it rather than actually just putting in a thing. So it's a better choice to have the physical media as opposed to having to stream it, and you get a better quality as well. But it's your level of laziness that dictates whether you're going to do that. It would be really weird to not have them on the box set, because then your collection is no longer complete.
Yeah, my collection is no longer complete. Oh, don't let it be. Amazon, don't let it be. Yeah, but I totally understand folks who are in the chat talking about potentially sailing the high seas, sailing the 7 seas, so that you have it at hand, even if it's a digital copy, not a physical copy, that you have it at hand in case it ever goes away. I'm in the same situation, right? I have a big sci-fi film and television collection on DVD and Blu-ray, and most of it's boxed up in my garage just because of convenience. My family room right now does not have a great deal of storage for physical media for putting stuff out. So we'll end up watching a show and the internet goes out, or the streaming service goes down, or whatever reason, we can't watch the new episode, and we're all sitting here waiting to have our family time for the night, get together and watch. We're watching Farscape right now. And I'm sitting there in the dark with the remote in my hand saying, I have this on DVD in the garage. I just have to, take 10 minutes to go and dig it out. And then we got to put it in and figure out how to change the inputs to the DVD player and sit through the FBI piracy warning notice. And it's convenient. We go to Prime and other streamers because of the convenience.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sailing the high seas, the one great thing about this being Amazon is that it truly is international and global, right? Like, you can get Prime. Yeah. There's not this weird hodgepodge where, like, HBO, you can get HBO Max in America. Here in Canada, you have to subscribe to Crave, which has the license for HBO, like all this kind of weird patchwork. And then, it's actually not available. Like, the fact that Stargate, for a while, you would get it a few days, was it a day or maybe a week ahead in the UK airing on Sky before it aired here? It's like, okay, well, the true fans are going to sail the high seas because they can't wait a week to see, I think that was during the Ben Browder seasons, like season 9 and 10. Like Avalon was out on Sky before it was out in North America. So you think fans are going to wait? Where the nice thing about Amazon is that you can get that whether you're in India, whether you're in England, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in the States. It's all Amazon Prime, and
I'm
you'll be able
excited
to
about
play it
that.
at the same time.
We're
So
all going
that's
to be able to
great.
watch the show at the same time. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. English time zone supremacy is over. Even if it's being filmed there, we'll still get to watch it at the same time as the English fans.
Raj asks, okay, let me see if I can get this question right. What do you both think of this idea? Earth's Stargate has screens or fluid metal plates which display the symbols, and it can be used anywhere and connects to any gate network. Raj, are you talking about like a new design for a Stargate that the design can kind of flow and change? That's an interesting idea for maybe an Earth-made Stargate or a new kind of Stargate. I wonder if there's going to be a new kind of Stargate.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up with you. Like, we've sort of been talking with the assumption that, it's going back to its basics, which is an Earth-based, contemporary, modern Stargate in the Milky Way. No guarantee of that. We don't know that.
Guarantee.
We're just saying that. So,
every series
has had a new gate.
It's prediction time. What are your predictions?
I am going to stick with that. It's based in modern Earth stuff, but it would be really cool if we had some sort of other, a new gate network. Perhaps that's where the new threat comes from, and you don't want to lose the classic iconic Milky Way gates, but what if there's a series where both are in play? There's two different gate networks in play. That could be interesting. That gives them an excuse to do something fresh. But also we're not exactly losing what gave the show its original DNA.
Yeah, even if it's set in the Milky Way galaxy, you could have somebody come along, maybe an antagonist, come along and engineer their own set of Stargates that still interact with the Milky Way network. You can still dial to and fro. They look totally different. Maybe they have some different functions, different security measures.
Yeah, there was a Milky Way seed ship's been found, and suddenly we've got new gates popping up.
Okay, here's my last prediction. I don't know that this is the case. I don't know if I want this to be the case, but here's what I'm going to throw out there. Here's what I'm going to throw out there for conversation. The new Stargate show will be set away from Earth. Might be in the Milky Way galaxy, might be somewhere else, but it won't be set on Earth. Instead, it will be set in some kind of human colony where instead of just setting up, a beta site, a gamma site with some military personnel, we've established human colonies with dozens or maybe even hundreds of people living on another planet. So you've got a connection to Earth with a Stargate. There's, they're not cut off like Atlantis was in the first season. There's some immediate access to Earth. But it's going to be set away from the planet Earth, and it's going to be called Stargate Colony.
Interesting. That would be neat. I would like that. Yeah, I guess the thing is, what's the unique? You mentioned Atlantis. That was that, but cut off. What does having that connection with Earth bring to the narrative structure? Like, is there, come back, we talked about the Expanse earlier, where you've got Earth and Mars, and they were the same, it's the same people. That was a colony, and then you've had Martian independence, and now that's actually a faction that isn't playing nice with Earth anymore. Like, you could actually have that but that's so much further in the future, and I feel like that loses some of the DNA of the show, which is that contemporary Earth that we're all looking for. So
yeah, it's probably
I just convinced myself mid spitball that I don't like my idea anymore.
Too early in the time. You're setting up future storylines for a show that gets made 20 years from now. But at this point in the timeline, I do feel like it would be too early to do like a Mars rebellion sort of a storyline. But I thought of this because I've been puzzling with this idea of do they just set the show on Earth and it's Stargate Command or some contemporary incarnation of a Stargate program, and then you just have to deal with all the updates right? Who's the president? What are the international relations? Does Russia in 2027 have involvement in the Stargate program? All these questions, right? Technology levels and all these questions that you have to solve. I feel like if you set the show off of Earth, then you can kind of cleverly evade some of those, at least for the time being. Until there's a need for them in the story, you've got your own little colony over here. You've got your own little group.
Yeah, I mean, I was always clamoring for more Alpha Site. I always thought that that was so cool. Once we, you just love the progression of humanity throughout the series, right? And that was such a big part of it. Like we've got off-world bases now. That's so cool. So
Yeah.
there's definitely something there of this desire to see like Earth reach out and colonize planets and set up bases. I don't think it would be hard for someone with the mind of Martin to come up with that great special reason of why there's a colony here and and that becomes part of the the MacGuffin of the show or whatever, of like why they're there, and that's some ancient mystery. Do that again.
Yeah, or something's discovered on the planet, right? You could do what great sci-fi shows have been human colonies on other planets where they're discover they're not the only life that's ever been there, right? The Expanse did it. Earth 2 did it.
Precursor civilizations like Mass Effect and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I was always interested in all those shows we did where there was a base. There was the Alpha Site. We had episodes like Death Knell and Allegiance. We had our allies were at the base, like the Tok'ra and the Jaffa would kind of come and go. The Gamma Site was more developed, right? Gamma Site was built into a mountainside. We saw that in Covenant and Gemini in later seasons.
What was the one where Carter takes the rich billionaire?
Yeah, that's Covenant. She takes Alec Coulson for an F-302 joyride.
Yeah, I mean that's like to see that gate room was just so you're like, oh my God, there's a new gate room, and we've got F-302s on other planets. Like
there's a landing strip out front.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, so take that kind of idea and move it 20 years down the road and say, okay, something like the Gamma Site has now expanded its infrastructure. More people work there, and because more people work there, more people live there. People are allowed to maybe bring their families there. And you start to get a 80, 90, 100 person colony that lives there and has the ability to go home through the Stargate when they want to. I think you could do a lot with it story-wise. I have no idea if that's the direction that Martin would consider, but those stories were always fun to me. I would love to see that kind of evolution of Earth's Stargate program.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty neat. And like, I guess the one thing is when you think about how dark you want it to go, of like when there are children, there's a different level of like threat and darkness to like, oh, the planet's under attack. Oh, we've got children here. It kind of ups the scales. And that was always a weird thing about TNG.
Yeah, TNG.
It was like, oh, there's children on the ship all the time. And you're like, what? Well, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, what?
Yeah. It's an exploratory vessel. It's sort of ambassadorial in its function. So there was at least an argument to be made for why there were families on the ship. It's not a warship. It's not patrolling the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
How we doing over here in chat, guys? SGA Gate Builder says, I think they need some real merch products for new and classic series. See, that's the hope, is you get not just new merchandise around the new show, but it also, as people start to watch the old stuff and fall in love with SG-1 and Atlantis and Destiny, that we get more merchandise around the previous series as well.
I was just reading through all the chat there.
Yeah, VM Moutsop says, instead of Egyptian, we find a Mayan civilization off-world and figure out their 15,000 year calendar started off-world.
Ah, interesting. So that's why the 2012 prediction wasn't correct about the end of the world, because it actually predated Earth, or
yeah, because it was offset, because it was imported here from another planet.
We didn't account for time dilation or planetary drift or
planetary drift. Exactly. Yeah, it's a great point. That other kind of core piece of what Stargate has always been, the sort of ancient mythology piece of it. Uh, you could retain. There's lots of ways to sort of import those stories from other planets. As hopefully as a team explores, I do hope that it's gonna have a team that explores planets through the gate.
That's the one thing that SG1 was always like, even when they reinvented themselves in season 9 and 10. The We haven't really talked about the other part of the DNA of the show was always that sort of commentary on religion and gods, right? And how you had the gold as false gods, and you had the Ori as literal godlike beings. That again feels like something that will be harder to do a third time as well, to talk about, to make that same running thread through all the series, which is that commentary on religion, whether or not that plays, because they didn't really do that in Atlantis. There was a bit of spirituality in universe, but certainly, I don't know what the way to do that once again is, while sort of keeping with that main thread of the original series.
Yeah, you have the spiritual elements around ascension in Atlantis, and the sort of the reverence paid toward the ancestors by the inhabitants of the Pegasus Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Although at that point, of course, as viewers, we sort of know who the Alterans were, and the whole span of their history, or at least a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, in universe, you've got the planet builders and the mystery around that, as well as the cosmic microwave background radiation, as to whether or not those two storylines would ever have dovetailed and connected with one another, is a question that I would still love to have an answer to.
Yeah. In the chat, Living Force is talking about Hindu mythology, and that's something we haven't talked about. Is that if Amazon's looking at global reach, like one of the largest growing markets is India, right? So perhaps there is a desire. I don't know how much influence Amazon is having on Martin's writing, and if how much production notes you get. But if it's like, hey, there's a market that we're looking. We talked about this earlier of like, hey, perhaps they want to cast an actress from a certain market that's famous in that region that would bring some eyes to it. Maybe there's a Bollywood actress that's a really hot deal in India right now, that they're like, okay, we want this because this will bring eyeballs in one of the largest growing markets that we have. That's more on the casting side of it, but to the point in the chat there of like, do you actually work that into some of the storylines as well? Like, is there stuff on that has to do with Hindu mythology?
Yeah, as long as they were a good performer and they were right for the part, that could be an interesting way of expanding things. We also talked at some point before the announcement about the Citadel model, where they were looking at kind of a parent show and then localized spin-offs. So there might be, an Indian Stargate series, maybe set in a different colony, or maybe a team of Indian adventurers that went through the gate, teams from different countries.
I did enjoy whenever there was trying to be a Russian team going through the gate. It never worked out well for them, but I liked the idea of that there was pressure from other countries that were involved after they were read into the program of their participation, and we didn't really get to see too much of that aside from the Russian team, and then the Korolev showing up. Would be really cool to delve into that a little bit more. But again, it comes back to that earlier question of what's Russia doing now?
Yeah,
that was a very different time
world?
when we were thinking of our relations with Russia, and it's certainly not the same. And looking at current geopolitics, I don't know if you want a Daedalus class ship in the hands of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, exactly. It's Colonel Chekhov and the Russians would insist. At one point, they insisted that SG-1, I think, must have a Russian member on the team, and Jack's response was, "Over my dead body," and
Yeah.
sir. And now, I mean, again, if the show's set on Earth and it's an international program, if it's evolved to the point where it's not run by the U.S. Air Force, but it's a truly international program, then you would have to have that sort of integration. If not individual teams, then within a team itself, have members representative of lots of different parts of the world, like the Atlantis expedition was,
Hmm.
but who obviously, have that trust and camaraderie that comes with being on a team together, trusting each other with your lives.
Yeah. And again, it's the, that multicultural side of things is appealing to a global audience. And then somebody in the chat there had an interesting point about if the Stargate is public, then there's religion would be discussed, and that's a great point as well. Like, how do you square your faith when you find out that aliens exist, when you find out that the Ori were a thing? Like, that would be very interesting as well. Again, not necessarily the plot of the show, but a setting where we find ourselves in contemporary Earth, where people have had to come to terms with that. What does the world look like when everyone had to face the fact that this is, well, how does that change your religion? How does that change the way you go about your daily lives? Does that end all wars? In that, I think it was the Ronald Reagan quote about if aliens showed up, us and the Soviets would kick their, that sort of thing about uniting. Or do you take a more darker tone and it splits people apart? I mean, that's what was that great movie, Arrival, where you've got the ships and all the different nations, and it ends up leading to like a hot button moment of like, oh, we're actually going to go to war over this with the Chinese, because like, I won't spoil the ending for folks. If you haven't seen Arrival, it's incredible. Go watch it. But like there's two different takes on that, right? Is discovering there's life out there a unifying force, or will that serve to divide us? And how has our answer perhaps changed from what we portrayed in the episode 2010 about the future, where there's disclosure and it's like an airport and everyone checks in and they go on their gate travel everywhere, as opposed to now, are we more cynical about what disclosure would do to a society where there's misinformation, where there's deep fakes, where we're in a post-truth world right now? How does disclosure work in a post-truth world where you have nations competing with their own forms of misinformation and their own narratives and trying to get that out there of like, oh, the Americans hid this program for a long time. Like that's ripe again for a political drama. I don't know if it's Stargate, but I know I would love the hell out of that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because you have to navigate all those things, and then, as you say, figure out how to tell stories in that world under those conditions. And it might make a great Stargate political thriller. I don't think that's what they're going to do right now.
No.
But I would love to see lots of different spin-offs of different genres. I'd like to see Stargate do, with the same DNA, do shows of a different nature someday, whether they're political. I mean, I don't know how you do an Earth-based show that is a Stargate series that is ostensibly about a portal to other planets. But yeah. And Bitcoin's got the correct line for me here that I was trying to remember, which is "over my rotting corpse, sir." That was the line. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your fandom with us, sharing your expertise. And we're going to keep hoping and wishing and rallying that we get a Vancouver production unit for the new show.
Thank you. I think Vancouver's ready to accept a second unit crew. We'll open up the park system, whatever forests you need to run around with and shoot P90s through. We'll go ahead. Like let's waive the permits.
Beautiful, and hopefully we get GateCon back too. I want conventions in Vancouver because a lot of the Stargate family is still there, of course. Folks are still living and working in BC. Cast and crew that we love to have a chance to meet as fans, get autographs, get pictures, hear their stories, hang out with them. And it's just across the border from me. So selfishly, it's close because I don't have to fly there. Yeah.
Well, hey, Darren, come on up and grab a beer with me anytime.
Absolutely. We'll look for you. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody who's here with us chatting, everybody who's been in and out over the course of the last couple hours, and a big thanks, of course, to GateWorld's mod team. Raj Luthra is here, Anthony Rawlings here, Red Zeon's here. I apologize to any of our mods who are present if I missed you, but that's who I'm seeing in the chat. Appreciate your help. Thanks also to our channel members and our patrons. You guys are a huge part of helping this channel move forward, make new content. I know it's kind of been a slow start to the year. I was sidetracked by the announcement of the new Stargate series at the end of the year. I had a couple of projects in the works that I was trying to get out by the end of the year. And then when Martin came to us and announced a new show, I just kind of picked them all up and set them aside. So now it's a new year and I'm picking them back up. So there's new stuff coming, I promise. New videos, and of course, continuing news coverage on our website at gateworld.net. I hope you'll check it out. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Let's see, I still have our schedule here. Today is January 30th, and we just talked with Andrew Reeve. So next week is going to be Diana Drew Botsford, Stargate novelist. We're going to talk a little bit about her history with the Star Trek franchise. She and her dad wrote the episode Rascals on TNG. We're going to talk about her novels. She wrote 2 Stargate SG-1 novels, The Drift and 4 Dragons. And generally, have a good time talking Stargate and fandom. Here next Friday, you'll see that one's a little bit earlier start time because Diana's on the East Coast. We're going to start a little bit earlier for her. So look for that conversation at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern next Friday. And then there's more going on beyond that. We're getting the schedule set for February and March and April. Have some interesting people to come on and hang out with us on a Friday. Glad you guys had a chance to hang out with us today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.